Hello, Tyler Strickland. Please tell my audience about the documentary you provided the score for, John Candy, I Like Me.
Yeah, well, we worked on this last year, a good chunk of last year, and it's a film all about John Candy, as you know, and we wanted it to be heartfelt and captivating and grand and have all the roller coaster emotions of his life and his career wrapped up in a nice little bow. Um, and so we wrote a lot of emotional music for it.
Absolutely. Do you have a favorite John Candy movie?
Um, I would probably have to say I default to planes, trains, and automobiles. However, I also love Uncle Buck. So it's a tie between those two.
What was it like to work with Colin Hanks?
Colin's great. Colin's great. I originally came to the project through a producer who both grew up with Colin and has worked with him for a very long time. And they made the Tower Records documentary years ago, which I remember watching as I was before I really got into film scoring, and I loved it. I thought it was a really captivating doc. But I also realized that Colin was somebody who is a big lover of music and rock and roll and all sorts of kinds of music. So I knew he would be really fun to work with. But I also, grew up watching him. He's a little bit older than me, but not much. And so I grew up watching him in film and TV as an actor. So it was really cool because I knew that he knows how this stuff works and was also a lover of music. So I knew it was going to be a great time.
Oh, that's great. All right. Now, when you got this job, what was the first thing you wanted the music to be like? Or what did you want to achieve with this score?
Well, when we started working on the film, we thought it should have been maybe something more like an 80s film, a little bit more John Candy, kind of funny, a little goofy, maybe some synthy stuff. But it became pretty obvious when we got some of the footage back. A lot of the interviews were very heartfelt from his closest friends, Catherine O'Hara and Eugene Levy and all of these guys that were just talking about how good of a person he was and how much he struggled with anxiety and depression and things like this. So we quickly realized it was a very different film and it needed to be more emotional. And so we took on a very orchestral approach with it. And I'm so glad that we did, and I'm really happy with how it turned out.
Oh yeah, I thought it was fantastic. Are there types of scores that you just or sort of sounds and scores that you try to avoid just like period?
Um, that's a good question.
Thank you.
I don't typically have things to avoid. I mean, if it works for the film and it serves a purpose and it feels appropriate, I think maybe the things that I try to avoid are things that are too on the nose. If we're working on a film and this doesn't necessarily apply to John Candy, but if we're working on a film that's geographically specific, I try to avoid the sounds from that region of the world. For me, it just is too on the nose. A lot of filmmakers like to avoid that as well. Yeah.
That's good stuff. How long
Yeah.
did making the music for this documentary take?
From start to finish, well, we went down a path where we thought it was one direction and then kind of jumped ship and came back to this orchestral approach. But I would say, all in all, I was probably on this project for 9 months, which is
Oh
a bit,
wow,
which is
that's
a bit
long, isn't it?
longer than typical. Yeah, but when we started getting the cuts in, I realized it was a really special thing, and we all put in the extra hours, and are all really glad that we did. But I know that sure, we could have made it a little faster, but it was like a get it right. This is the only John Candy film that's ever going to exist, and the family's involved. It's the one to do it on. So I'm glad we spent the time.
That makes sense. It's definitely sacred territory that you're walking on. How long does it normally take for you to make a score, though?
Typically, 3 months is a pretty standard amount of time. Although I will say, there's always this exploration phase before you really start scoring to picture and working with the film, where maybe as they're on set in production, you're writing some themes, and that kind of thing can happen very early on, and then you might go away for a little while and then come back onto the project. So I'm not including that, but I would say normally when we get into post-production, there might be a locked cut 2, 3.5 months.
Okay, okay. And tell me about your studio. It looks pretty cool. What do you have
Yeah.
separate rooms and do you
No,
have like
it's,
a drawer full of knickknacks? And tell me about that.
oh yeah, there's many drawers full of knickknacks. I built the studio. I'm in LA, and I built it about 5 years ago. And it's my little cave. It's just one big room. There are very tall ceilings in here, probably about 15 feet. It's soundproof. And it's just full of all of these, instruments that I've been collecting for 20 something years. But yeah,
What was the first instrument you started to play?
I'm traditionally a guitar player.
Ooh.
Yeah. I toured in bands playing guitar for a long time. I wrote and produced many artists where I would play guitar on their records. And so, that translates really well in film scoring to a number of instruments that, are set up like guitars but aren't guitars. I also have a few, cello-like things and violin type instruments that have frets that are a little easier to play like a guitar. Um, so yeah, but I mean, I also grew up playing piano. We had a piano in my house when I was a kid and couldn't get me away from it. So,
Awesome. Okay, so who are the top three guitar playing film scoring individuals ever, in your opinion?
oh, that's a good question.
Besides yourself.
Um, okay. I think I have an answer for that. Um, he hasn't done a ton of film scoring, but Ry Cooder is an amazing guitar player. He's scored a film called Paris, Texas.
Ooh,
He's very known for his work in that kind of Western sort of, Southern, with a little bit of a twang kind of thing. And then, you know, uh, Gustavo, The Last of Us, a number of other great shows and films over the years, is a guitar player. He plays an instrument called the charango, and it's a South American instrument. And so, that's still a guitar, which I would classify as a guitar. And then, I mean, I think about guitar in film scores, contemporary, Tyler Bates does a lot of really great stuff too. Yeah, it's very cool.
amazing.
A little bit more like rock, heavier stuff. John
When
Wick.
you have, sorry, when you have a job, are you a sleeper? I know some people just don't sleep.
Do I sleep while I'm on a job?
Yeah.
I'm always sleeping. No, I'm a bit of a workaholic, unfortunately, so I can't get into the groove unless I am just really, unfortunately, not very kind to my body and I work a lot. I have to be able to get into it, I have to just be in here for a really long time. Late hours, and then you get into it, and then I found that the trick to sleeping is that once you get into that groove after a while of, spending time just banging your head against the wall, um, maybe sketch out a few cues, but don't really finish them. Just get them started and then go sleep. And then you come back and you have this playground that's kind of set up for success. And so I like to try and work like that a lot.
Okay. Well, hopefully you're someone else hears this and they get some sleep because I know a lot of
That,
you guys don't. Yeah.
yeah, a lot of us don't.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Amazing. All right. Well, I really enjoyed Catherine O'Hara in the documentary. Did you get a chance to meet her?
No, unfortunately, we premiered the film in September in Toronto, and I would assume that at that point, her health had declined quite a bit, so she wasn't there, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, she's really the other star of this film, in my opinion, and just so special, you know. We grew up with we grew up with her, you know. She's just amazing.
She strikes me as a beautiful soul. What was the TIFF premiere like?
The TIFF premiere was unlike anything I'd ever been to. And I've gone to every film festival that I'm aware of that has had big sort of gala-like premieres for some of these films. We were in Toronto, downtown, in a converted music hall that they use pretty much only for a couple of premieres at the Toronto Film Festival. And it was the opening night film. So it was a converted a concert hall. So it wasn't like 1,500 seats, it was 3,500 seats and just full of John Candy loving Canadians. And I mean, there were moments in the film where you couldn't hear the dialogue. You could not even hear the movie. People were just laughing so hard. So it was a great experience. Also, the Prime Minister of Canada introduced the movie on stage with Ryan Reynolds and Colin Hanks. So that was really special. Very cool thing to be a part of. Yeah.
Oh, sounds amazing. One thing that resonated with me in the documentary shows, it's sort of emphasized that John Candy was a real human being, a three-dimensional person, and due to him really understanding humanity, his own humanity, he was able to tap into it and give these really layered performances. People might just think of them as kind of, for a mass audience, or a little silly, but like he really was able to tap into something really powerful. And also comedians maybe get like a dismissed, let's say, in terms of like having like top tier performances. Um, and that really struck me as something profound and meaningful in the documentary. Was there a general theme or piece of information about John Candy that you thought was particularly interesting while working on this project?
Well, kind of what you're saying, he had so much humanity about him, but he was a comedian. And you don't get to see that side of comedians very often. They kind of hide behind this mask of comedy. So the whole point of this film was to get behind that and see really what he was struggling with, and the real John Candy. And so, I found that to be really interesting and sort of the whole purpose of the film. Um, and so with the score and how it reacted to that information, we didn't want to shed any light on the comedy in the film with the score. I think that stands alone. Now we did use some needle drop songs and stuff to give it a little bit of pace and some fun, but I think that with the score, it was very important that it just maintained this consistent feeling of like discovering the person and uncovering the truth about this person and being very gentle with all of the genuine emotion behind it. So I wanted to treat that stuff very sensitively and not make it too funny.
Right. Okay. Very interesting. And I was able to listen to the score on Spotify. Had a good sesh
Oh,
with that. And
that's great. Thank you.
yeah, absolutely. It definitely works isolated from the film as well.
That's
Um,
awesome.
is yeah, is there like a CD or a record of this that people can scoop up?
Well, I don't think so. Fortunately, we're living in the days where everything's digital, so that's it is everywhere. But maybe one day we will have a vinyl of it. That would be very cool.
Nice.
Um, yeah, and it was all recorded live in LA with orchestra here, so I'm really proud of that, which is both unusual for a documentary, but just more and more unusual today in general to be able to record live orchestra for films. So,
That's right. It's true. All right. Well, that is what I've heard. Anyways, Tyler, thank you so much for your time. Is there anything else you'd like to say about John Candy or the documentary before I let you go?
Just go watch it. It's on Amazon.
That's right. Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time.
I appreciate it.
All right. We're